Everyone always talks about why you should do a PhD, but I think it's more helpful to talk about why you shouldn't do a PhD. So in this video, I'm going to share some honest reasons a PhD might not be for you. Not to scare you, but to actually help you make a decision that's right for you, and not just what you think you're supposed to do. Hi, if you're new here, my name's Aku. I'm a second year neuroscience PhD student studying in London. And I get questions all the time from people asking whether or not they should do a PhD. The truth is, a PhD can be amazing, but it's also very specific. It suits a certain type of person and a certain way of working. So let's get into it. Number 1, do not do a PhD if you hate uncertainty. If you need clear instructions following a strict routine with fixed deadlines, a PhD might be quite stressful for you. Most of the time during a PhD, no one's actually telling you what to do every day. You're designing your own projects, your own experiments, and your research question is likely going to change multiple times. Sometimes you'll spend weeks or even months working on something just to finally realise you're going in the wrong direction, and you'll need to completely rethink your approach. There is no checklist for doing well, and often you're actually making decisions without complete information. You have to decide what experiments to run, when to say enough is enough, and when it's worth pursuing something further. Also, when it's finally time to let go. This means sometimes you spend a lot of time second guessing yourself. You've got to be asking yourself questions like, is this even a good idea? Am I wasting time? Should I do more? Or should I be doing something completely different? And this uncertainty is something that doesn't go away in the first year. It really does stay throughout the PhD. You're still going to be making judgment calls about what's important. For example, is this publishable? Is this important? And is this even worth my energy? And if this is something that makes you more anxious than curious, this is something you need to think about very, very carefully. Because a huge part of doing a PhD is learning how to sit with unknowing, but moving forward anyway. This brings me to my second point. Don't do a PhD if you're only in it for the doctor title. If the main reason you want to do a PhD is because of the letters in front of your name, this motivation might go away pretty quickly. PhD is long, and most of the time is not really that glamorous. You're not going to have a big breakthrough every day. Most days you are reading papers, running experiments, running code, troubleshooting, that kind of stuff. And there'll be long stretches during a PhD where nothing really exciting happens. No one's clapping for you, and there's no sense of achievement unlocked. At the end of the day, the title is a very small part of the experience compared to the day-to-day reality. And if you don't enjoy the actual process of research, being curious, being stuck, thinking deeply about one problem over a long period of time, this can start to feel draining very, very quickly. So it's worth asking yourself, do I actually want to be a researcher, or do I just like the idea of being called a doctor? And number 3, do not do a PhD if you hate failure. And I know everybody does hate failure, but during a PhD, this would happen a lot and constantly, and you have to be comfortable with being okay with this. A PhD involves a lot of things not actually working. Experiments fail, papers get rejected, you realise your hypothesis was completely wrong. And sometimes you might find out that someone's already done the work, but even better. And this isn't really occasional, it's constant. A huge part of research is testing ideas that don't work and slowly narrowing it down to something that might. You can spend months in something and actually end up with nothing usable. This can be very hard emotionally, especially if you tie your self-worth to how productive you are or to outcomes. A PhD is basically learning how to be wrong in public and still keep going. So if you feel failure is something personal, embarrassing, or demoralizing, rather than being a part of learning, PhD can be emotionally draining. And this brings me to number 4, do not do a PhD if you want quick money. A PhD is definitely not the fastest route to financial stability. Most PhDs are usually on a stipend, and while a stipend can cover basic living costs, it's really nothing compared to your friends in industry or in careers such as finance or investment banking. And this comparison may creep up on you, especially if you're in your mid to late 20s, and everyone else seems to be hitting milestones like promotions, savings, or buying a new house. So you do have to be okay with delayed gratification. You're investing several years into training, knowing the financial payoff will come much later. And don't get me wrong, this does not mean a PhD is not worth it. But it does mean you're choosing long-term intellectual development over short-term financial gain. And this trade-off needs to make sense for your life and your priorities. Number 5, do not do a PhD if you need constant validation. In school and undergrad, you get grades and you get feedback with clear milestones. But in a PhD, this mostly does disappear. You could go a long time without external validation. No one checking your work every week, no one giving you regular scores or rankings. Sometimes you might feel like you're doing absolutely nothing, even though you are making slow progress. And because research is so specialised, most people won't even understand what you're working on. This means you need to learn how to motivate yourself and recognise your own achievement, and you need to decide what counts as progress. So if you rely heavily on praise or external reassurance to feel confident, the lack of feedback every day could be tough. And this brings me to my final point: do not do a PhD if you're trying to avoid real life. This is an uncomfortable one, but it's very important. A PhD shouldn't be a way to avoid making decisions about your career or your life. It's not really a holding space, and it won't give you clarity about what you really want. It's still a demanding job with expectations and long-term consequences. You need to think about where this path will lead and what you want to do after. If you're doing a PhD because you feel lost or unsure about what you want to do, or you feel a pressure to keep studying, it's worth pausing and thinking, does this path actually align with my goals? Or are you just delaying a different decision? So I want to be really clear. None of this means that doing a PhD is bad. I'm personally doing a PhD and I couldn't be happier. What I am saying is that PhD is not the default path for if you're smart or ambitious. It's one option among many. You can have an amazing career and have an impact without ever doing a PhD. If after hearing all of this, you still feel excited about the idea of doing a PhD, the independence, the problem solving, the long-term thinking, then it might be a great fit for you. But if it made you realise you want something more structured and maybe more people-facing, that's also okay. That's self-awareness. And honestly, that's more important than any title. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more PhD advice and tips, and check out all of my other videos. I'll see you in the next one.